Hello and welcome to this special episode of CounterPoints from the sidelines of the IISS Manama Dialogue here in Bahrain. I'm Melinda Nucifora. During the three-day Regional Security Summit, our team has been fielding a host of interviews and analysis from prominent politicians and power brokers. For this CounterPoints special, I want to bring you two of those discussions, focusing primarily on the geopolitical interaction between the Gulf and Europe. In 2023, for the first time, the European Union appointed a special representative for the Gulf region. It demonstrated a really interesting pivot, maybe, a realignment of priorities for the bloc. Here's my discussion with the EU's special representative to the Gulf, Luigi Di Maio. First of all, you're the first special representative for the Gulf region. Why now? Why did the bloc feel that this is a uniquely important time, that it needs to have a designated focus on the Gulf?
Thank you for this question, because it's the base of my job in a way. We started on 2020, around 2020, to realize that this region was becoming more and more critical for our interest in terms of multilateralism, in terms of making stability around the world and making the stability of the Middle East, because the security of this region is our security. So we decided in 2021 to start to collect a new strategy to the GCC in particular, but to the wider Gulf region. And in 2022 we approved it just in the days when Russia invaded Ukraine, and it was very timely because these countries became more and more during those days and beyond strategic partners, even for managing the crisis in Ukraine, and not only for fossil fuels. They are very instrumental to the exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine and so on. So today, this mandate has 5 pillars: trade, energy, regional security, people to people, institutions. And just 1 year ago, we organized the first ever summit of our leaders, 27 European leaders, 6 leaders from GCC in Brussels, at the presence of His Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and many others. And it was very important, the final statement with common goals to achieve in view of the next summit that will be in Saudi Arabia at the end of 2026.
Should it have happened sooner? Was it an oversight that the EU didn't have that sort of strategic focus earlier?
I always say better late than never. But of course, our member states, they have historical relations with the Gulf countries, with the GCC. There are even countries among our member states that are security and defense partners of the GCC countries. So it's not a matter of the level of relations. It's a matter of engaging with the EU as such, where there is a bottleneck, because there are specific competences of the EU when it comes to trade, when it comes to people, when it comes to regulatory frameworks for energy, green hydrogen, and many other things. So the point was, the member states, I was still foreign minister at the time, the 27 member states, they realized that working united as European Union in dealing with the Gulf, it was better. And so we created this strategy. But it doesn't mean that we started in 2022 or 2020 to develop our relations with them. We already had it.
In your session here at the Manama Dialogue, you said that the EU considers its security and defence integral, or the same as, the security and defence of the Gulf. Why? And can you explain to us how it's so?
Yeah, let's look at the 12 days war between Israel and Iran. We have and we had exactly the same concerns of the Gulf countries. Nuclear, the risk of the spillover of the war, the point of the Strait of Hormuz and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, the block of the Strait of Hormuz, and even the contamination in case of specific bombardments on some sites, nuclear sites. So if you look at the concerns are the same, even if this region is relatively far from our borders. Why? Because the interest of the Middle East in having stability here, it gives them the opportunity even of having prosperity domestically. Exactly for us, if the Middle East is not stable, our prosperity cannot be developed.
Europe has a lot of its own issues on its own doorstep. I mean, not least the situation in Ukraine, for one. I mean, does the EU have the bandwidth, have the capacity to be focusing further afield when it has so many issues at home?
Yeah, absolutely, because we have countries, member states, that they have a holistic foreign policy. We are members of the G7, member of the Security Council, members of the G20. They are used to have a general approach when it comes to the foreign policy. Then there are the existential threats that we have in Europe. The main one is the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we are very focused on that. But as you know better than me, Saudi and UAE, they were instrumental for negotiating the most important number of exchange of prisoners between Russia and Ukraine. Qatar was very important for the returning of Ukrainian children from Russia. And the rest of the countries are dealing with Ukraine. For instance, UAE just signed an FTA with Ukraine in a way where they are increasing their strategic partnership with Ukraine. Of course, we know their relations with Russia. On one side, we ask them to convey the message to stop this war, to have a ceasefire and to build a lasting peace and durable lasting peace. On the other side, when we don't agree, as all the friends do, we say it to each other.
Mm-hmm. You've spoken, if we turn to the other unfortunate conflict that is dominating the global consciousness, you've spoken about the EU's push together with Saudi Arabia to start actively focusing on phase 2 of President Trump's ceasefire plan for Gaza.
Yeah.
When it comes to the what's next, how concerned are you that this ceasefire won't hold to even allow those plans to be put into place?
We have to be very honest. Before October 7, as international community, we have not done enough for having a durable peace in Gaza, in Palestine, and between Israel and Palestine. Why? Because we were thinking that having the ceasefires around the region, not only in Gaza, if we look, for instance, at Lebanon, if we look at the situation in Syria at the time and after, we have this idea that we have the ceasefires and then we will see. The point is the implementation of the resolutions of United Nations. There is a resolution, and there was a resolution for each issue before October 7, and there is a resolution even for many of the crises around the region now. Yemen, for instance, or even the point linked to the freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. It's very good that in this plan we have a phase 2, because we will not stay in the idea of just guaranteeing the ceasefire. We have to stabilize the ceasefire, but the next step is the governance to disarm Hamas, to work on the reconstruction of Gaza, and for a Palestinian state. And the global alliance, like even the French and Saudi initiative in New York, are going in the direction of keeping alive the process for working really for two-state solution in a day that might be even a matter of decades, I don't know. But in any case, we have to keep pushing on that. When I was foreign minister, I remember very well that I met several ministers around the world during 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. The Palestinian issue was even not in the first 5 of 10 bullets point or your speaking points. Because at the time, for everybody, there was the peace there. But it was a very fragile peace, as we saw.
Mm. So what do you think that the EU can bring in conjunction with its Gulf partners to ensure that we get to that next step?
First of all, I think that, as High Representative Kaja Kallas just said recently in an interview, European Union has to be a player, not only a payer. And this is very important because we are the largest donor of the Palestinian Authority at world level, the largest donor of UNRWA. We have 2 missions on the ground, EUBAM Rafah, EUPOL COPS. We have a delegation, that one in Israel and one in Ramallah, in Jerusalem, that are very big and equipped with many skills from all over the region for helping the Palestinians, for helping the peace between Israel and Palestine. But it's not enough. This is why our idea is to partner more and more with the Gulf countries and the rest of the Middle East countries for working concretely on a political process. And the process has to go to the two-state solution with the intermediary steps like the governance, the board of peace, for instance, is very interesting for us to look how to join it, and even the reconstruction. Let's work more and more with the Egyptians, looking at this conference for the reconstruction of Palestine in order to understand how to create a sustainable process for the reconstruction. But here in the region, you always hear one sentence that is very important. Okay, we want to reconstruct Gaza. Are we sure that we'll not destroy it again? And this is the point. The process of reconstruction of Gaza goes hand in hand with the political process for a stable Palestine or a state of Palestine.
Just finally, before we run out of time, you pointed ahead, you mentioned the meeting coming up in 2026 in Saudi Arabia. What are your priorities? What do you want to have ready to be signed off, launched and announced by then?
Honestly, the summit, as I told you, is the second ever. It shows even the gap we have to fill. We are still at the second ever summit of our leaders. We have an association agreement with GCC since 1988, when I was 2. And now, just in 2024, we had the first summit. So we have to push, we have to keep pushing. The point is very easy, very simple. We have common and mutual interest on trade, on renewable energies, on regional security, on people to people. And there are many projects ongoing. Inshallah, let's hope that in view of the summit, we are able to deliver concretely with a good hand on many of these processes.
We look forward to covering that meeting in 2026.
Thank you, you're very welcome.
Luigi Di Maio, thank you so much for joining us here on CounterPoints.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Bye.
Lovely to see you. Later, during the summit, I was able to get the perspective from the other side of that geopolitical equation. I sat down with His Excellency Jasem Mohamed Albudaiwi, the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council. It's a pleasure to welcome His Excellency Jasem Mohamed Albudaiwi, the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council. Thank you so much for joining us, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Melinda, for having me on Arabiya English.
In an interview that I did here on the sidelines of the Manama Dialogue with the EU's Special Representative to the Gulf, Luigi Di Maio, he said that the stability and prosperity of the Gulf region is exactly intertwined with the security and prosperity of Europe. Why do you think that the GCC has found itself almost the gatekeeper of stability across the globe?
It is the common, wise foreign policy of all GCC countries that put us into that status. The whole world looks at us as a reliable partner, as a reliable and strategic partner. We are engaged with the whole international community to make sure not only the stability and the security of our region is secured, but the whole international community, peace and stability is also secured. We are straightforward, we are transparent, we are result-oriented countries that really look into the future and deal with everybody in equality. We are engaged with so many strategic partnerships with so many countries and so many blocs, and I'm ready to speak about it if the time permits.
Indeed. We know that this is the first time the EU has had a special representative to the Gulf. We know that NATO is opening an office in the Gulf for the first time ever. Do you think it's long overdue that other parts of the world realise how strategically important and how valuable the Gulf is?
They do realize, they do understand how important the GCC is. We are engaged in dialogues from Russia to China to India to the ASEAN, to the EU, United States, Mercosur, Australia. We are very much involved with everybody internationally, let alone our brothers and sisters in the Arab world. We are also engaged deeply, deep talks and strategic partnerships with Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, even Yemen. We are standing up for Yemen and trying to help it with everything that we can. The GCC is iconic now. The GCC has reached the status both politically and economically that we have become a major part in every international equation. We are a very important element in any equation.
You mentioned economic, and I'm absolutely going to come to that. But before we do, it would be remiss of me not to hark back to September's strike on Doha by Israel. Since then, has the GCC changed its defensive posture? Has it forced the collective to view their joint defence differently? And if so, what changes have been made?
Well, right after the strikes on Doha, the leaders of the GCC held an extraordinary summit in support for our brothers in Qatar, and called upon the ministers of defense of the GCC to hold an extraordinary meeting in order to look into ways to increase our military cooperation. We are all part of a GCC defense treaty, which covers everybody. Our charter says any attack on any GCC country means it's an attack on all the GCC. So the ministers of defense, when they met in their extraordinary meeting, came up with 5 major points. The first one is to increase intelligence sharing through the Unified Military Command. Also, they called to work on transmitting the full air picture to all operations centers in the GCC states. Mm-hmm. Also, they made sure to accelerate the efforts of the GCC Joint Working Team on the early warning system against ballistic missiles. The 4th point was to update joint defense plans in coordination between the Unified Military Command and the GCC operations and the training committees. The last point, the 5th point that the ministers of defense have agreed on is to conduct joint exercises between air operations and air defense centers within the next 3 months, to be followed by a live joint air exercise after that. So this is the collective effort that the GCC countries have taken on a military basis.
Is that the first time that they've had those sort of joint military exercises to that level? Has it been ramped up since this?
No, it hasn't. It's continuous. Mm-hmm. We have maritime exercises, naval exercises, air exercises, and army exercises. It's joint. They do them separately, and after every 2 years, they do a big, huge joint with live ammunition that has Navy, air, and military.
You mentioned early warning systems in one of those 5 points. That was an issue, obviously, in the Doha strike. Is there now a greater importance put on having an autonomous control of an early warning system?
Yes, this is what we are working on with our friends in the United States. Is the early warning system against ballistic missiles that it's joint. It's an umbrella that covers the 6 countries, and we're doing it with the United States.
You alluded to in your first statements about the amount of influence the GCC countries have on the broader international community. The US has obviously exerted significant pressure on Israel to get this current ceasefire in Gaza over the line. Do you think the US would have acted so decisively without GCC pressure, support, and intervention?
Well, GCC countries, not only with the United States, with every single country or bloc that has a special relationship with Israel, We are very adamant about it. We are very straightforward. We have been calling upon all of Israel's friends to make sure to convince Israel to refrain from its act. Finally, it paid off. Finally, the international community realized how great the massacre done by Israel on the Palestinian people. So yes, we are talking with everybody. We are discussing it with everybody at every different level.
How concerned are you by the fragility of the current ceasefire?
Well, it depends on Mr. Netanyahu, how he translates the next step. But the road is clear and obvious to everybody. First of all, the ceasefire. Second of all, assistance to be flown to Gaza on a continuous basis. Thirdly, rebuilding Gaza. Fourthly, the two-state solution. These are very important four elements that have to be implemented in order to reach peace in the region.
What role do you see the GCC playing in ensuring that this ceasefire moves to phase two?
Well, we are with the international community. It's a joint decision. It's a joint effort by everybody. The discussion has to be there all the time. Phase two is very important. Maintaining phase one and making sure that there are no attacks by Israel, which is happening almost on a daily basis on Gaza. This has to stop. Then comes phase two. Phase two has to be a collective effort by everybody, as was phase one.
Mm-hmm. Part of that, as you mentioned, is the recognition of a Palestinian state, something that GCC countries, no least with their partners in Europe, have been instrumental in. The current US administration still hasn't openly expressed its support for a two-state solution. Do you think we will see a Palestinian state without US support?
Well, the United States is definitely a major partner in the peace process. And asking them to recognize Palestine is something that we do on a regular basis. Their support for that solution is essential and important. We hope that one day they do. We know that there are many voices within the United States that call for the two-state solution. The international community now has basically recognized Palestine. 4 out of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council have recognized Palestine now. I think one day we will see a United States administration recognizing Palestine, definitely. And we hope it's this one, Mr. Trump's administration.
When you discuss it with the Trump administration officials, what response are you getting from them?
I think you should ask them that.
Indeed. When we were opening our statements, you mentioned the economy, obviously incredibly important when we talk about development and stability, not just in the region, but in the broader community. We've seen the first visit to the Gulf by a British finance minister, I believe in about 6 years. Rachel Reeves flew to the region to discuss the progression of a free trade deal with the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. How is that progressing? She says she's very confident that it will be done soon. Do you share her confidence?
I do. We had a joint meeting last week in Kuwait between the 6 ministers of trade of the GCC plus the UK Minister for Trade. The discussion was very positive and productive. We're almost 96% done with the FTA. There are the remaining 4%. We discussed the 4% with Minister Chris of the UK. We expressed to him our joint views on these remaining issues. He came back with us with some alternatives, some options to iron out these differences. We are studying them now. Hopefully we can get consensus on them and sign the FTA in 2025. It is a very important step. The UK is a major trade partner with the GCC. Most of our foreign investment is in London and other areas in the UK, the GCC countries' sovereign funds control about 34% of the whole international investment worth of 3.4 trillion US dollars. It's a power you don't reckon with. When we come with positivity. We bring good stuff with us, good things. We create jobs, we move economies. So signing an FTA with us really is a good option.
Will we see it before the end of the year?
I hope so. I'm working very hard to make sure it happens before the end of this year.
We are experiencing, though, a 20-year hiatus of negotiations with Europe for their free trade agreement. I had read commentary from the EU saying that it was restarting, but I am not sure if that is the case.
Well, the negotiations with the EU has suspended and has not yet resumed. But what we are doing now is discussing with them what can we do to resume these negotiations. We are in the early stages of testing the water between us, and I hope it comes to life very soon.
Mm-hmm. What's the sticking points?
It's terms of reference. There is a huge TOR which we have to agree on. What should be in the FTA, what should not be in the FTA. These are the issues that we are discussing. Both sides have points they want to add. Both sides have points they want to remove. And it's just too technical of issues that needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm. The World Bank Group's Vice President has described the GCC as a global force for good in terms of development finance. How intertwined do you see the GCC when it comes to supporting regional security through finance?
Well, a lot of GCC countries have development funds that work in so many areas in the world. We use these funds as opportunity, not as challenges. We are, as I told you earlier, when we come with all positivity. We come with a win-win scenario. We are very proud of these development funds. They have served so many areas. I was in Aden 2 years ago. I saw many GCC positive presence there, hospitals, schools, electricity grids, you name it. It was there in Aden and many other countries, in poor areas in Asia, all of Africa and in the Arab world, even in Latin America, we are also there, and the Caribbean. So we really use that leverage to help people, to help the infrastructure and to help bring peace and stability to them.
So it's an approach of assistance through investment, not assistance through aid.
Both. We do both. Before, at the early stages, it was only aid, but now we are mixing investment and aid, which is investment is even better to the economy of the country that is receiving the
much more long-term support.
Definitely.
Your Excellency, it's been a pleasure to have you on CounterPoints. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Melinda, for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of CounterPoints from the sidelines of the IISS Manama Dialogue in Bahrain. You can find our latest episodes on YouTube at the Al Arabiya English channel, and of course follow us on X and TikTok for all of our latest episodes. Thanks for joining us. I'm Melinda Nucifora.